And one of the other shortcomings of the traditional lead acid style battery boosters is the fact that it uses lead acid battery chemistry. I mentioned in another portion of the video that the self-discharge rate on these lithium iron phosphate batteries is about 10% per year. Lead acid batteries tend to lose charge without any load, just self-discharge at about 1% per month. What this really means is no matter what you're doing, if you're not maintaining that lead acid battery on a trickle charge, it's discharging. It's always in a constant state of discharge. One of the things that really ages a battery is the number of discharge cycles. In fact, battery manufacturers typically rate their battery as being good for a number of discharge cycles. I've read somewhere that a typical lead acid battery is good for anywhere between 400 and 600 partial discharge cycles, which means, you know, a partial discharge cycle would be a little more than what you would what would be required to start your engine. It may be, you know, running your radio for a while with your windows. If you run your windows up and down, you got electric windows, and then start your car. That may qualify as being a partial discharge cycle. I don't know exactly how they rate that, but if you think about that, the number of days you drive your car, how many times you start your car in a year, and the length of time your batteries typically last. I don't know. I've gotten, you know, anywhere from 2 to 4 years of useful life out of most lead acid batteries I've had over the years, and I've lived in both, you know, really cold regions and really hot regions, and I can say, you know, the heat is as hard on batteries as cold. But the point being, if you get 2 or 3 years out of a lead acid battery that's being frequently used and it's been maintained and it's keeping a charge, which is the purpose of your car's charging system, you're only going to get, you know, usually between 2 and 4 years, depending on the quality of the battery and depending on usage. Now, these little guys, the lithium ion batteries, are typically rated in thousands of charge cycles, and it could be a couple thousand, it could be 4,000. And the point being, these will outlast the typical lead acid chemistry battery booster box several times over. So, you know, if you look at what it costs to replace the lead acid battery that's inside most of those lead acid battery boosters, you know, right there you've got easily the cost of this or a similar device, and it's only going to be good for a couple years. Usually they use low-cost outdoor power equipment batteries like what you'd have in a riding lawnmower. Some of the better ones may use some of the larger batteries that you would have in a motorcycle, other power sports equipment like a personal watercraft. Usually what they've got is a low-cost, low-quality lead acid battery like what you'd buy at Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, and you know, that's good enough for most people. And you may be very satisfied with something like that, and by all means, I'm not talking you out of buying something like that. I mention this only because that's part of the ownership experience of having a lead acid based, you know, booster device, is eventually those batteries do crap out. The good news is they're serviceable. You know, it's a lead acid battery. If you know about lead acid battery maintenance, you know, there's no reason why you couldn't take that thing apart once a year to get access to the battery and make sure things are clean. And if you can, you know, adjust the electrolyte level, add water to it or whatever, you know, check the specific gravity, see what your cell condition is. You can do all that stuff in most cases. You can't really do this with a lithium ion based booster. But again, you know, how much do you want to screw with it? You know, I'm looking at this type of device as the ideal solution for people who aren't mechanics or people who aren't technical, who aren't going to want to mess with it. I mean, this is 1.5 pounds versus 5 pounds. I mean, just from the standpoint of, you know, the space that it takes up in your car and the amount of attention you have to give it, to me, it beats the lead acid alternative hands down every time. Now, granted, some of those other lead acid battery boosters, have neat things in them, like even have AC power inverters, which why? They have little air compressors, and again, I ask why. I keep little cheap, inexpensive, whatever compressors in my cars, just the same way as I keep booster cables in my cars, and I'll add these to my car. You know, I can't see the point in having everything built into one device. So if you're looking at battery boosters, whether it be lithium ion or the traditional lead acid variety, don't put a whole lot of importance on the air compressor that it may have, or the AC power inverter, or you know, the LED floodlight, whatever. Those are all great, but you know, the more stuff they stick into one of those, the harder it is for them to build something to a given cost and have it still be a quality product. So again, it's currently November. The holidays are upon us. Give this some thought as to what you could give to the person on your gift buying list that you know has everything, and you just don't know what to get them. You know, odds are if they're a driver, and especially if you live in an area of the country where you have extreme heat or cold, you know, there's a use for this kind of thing. And you know, I'm not saying you need to buy this one. I'm not at all affiliated with you know, Harbor Freight or any other source for these things. But you know, give this a thought. You know, it's good for a lot of stuff. If you only use it one time in one of those worst case scenarios that I mentioned, you know, being alone at night in a parking lot, or you know, heaven forbid you ever stopped on the side of the road. I mean, that's kind of maybe even implausible. If you're on the side of the road with a dead battery, you've been driving down the highway and your battery conks out, or you know, you've lost your charging system, you've got bigger issues, and for that reason I would encourage you to you know, maybe have roadside assistance. But for situations where you can self-rescue, this is a great solution. You know, not having to go bother a stranger to jump start their car. I know where I work, a lot of people aren't really comfortable with having somebody else root around under their hood so that they can get access to their battery. And honestly, you know, do you want to be responsible for an accidental damage to somebody's, you know, fancy car? You know, I'm around a lot of cars that are worth more than your average American's home, and you know, to have to answer to somebody for an accidental body damage with booster cables, nah, screw that. You know, not to mention the indignity that you might suffer if you have to ask someone like that if they would do that favor, and then they look at you like you're crazy. This isn't expensive, and this is something that, you know, if you get 4 or 5 years of serviceable use out of it, you amortize the cost of these things at $60, $70, whatever they happen to cost. That's pretty inexpensive for peace of mind. You know, not to mention you can use it for other things. It's not the ideal way to charge your dead cell phone battery, but you know, it does include a USB charging port to facilitate that. It's got the 12-volt output so that you can, you know, plug other things into it. I know I've got the DC to DC power converter so I can power my laptop, and yeah, you know, it's not how I would choose to power my laptop, but the point is, it's not a one-trick pony. Yeah, this one does happen to have a light on it. Big deal. I'll never use it for that. Anyway, it's November. It's gift giving and gift buying season. Think about this as an alternative for, you know, maybe the motorists in your life, instead of another tie or pair of socks or blouse or hat or gloves, or you know, other I don't know what to buy them type of gift. Look into something like this. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Post your comments below. Like it if you like it. Subscribe. We'll be doing other videos later about some other battery related stuff. Thanks.